Think about the last time you got into a heated argument. Maybe it was over politics, or even a controversial call in a sports game. In that exact moment, you probably felt completely rational. You were absolutely certain the facts were on your side. We love to imagine our minds are perfectly neutral. We picture our intellect as an impartial, truth-seeking scientist who simply looks at the evidence, weighs the facts, and follows the logic exactly where it leads. But psychology and philosophy point to a very different, unsettling reality. Reason is actually a hired gun. It operates like a brilliant but entirely crooked attorney. When you are losing a debate, your brain doesn't honestly search for the objective truth. It scrambles to find clever loopholes so you can win at any cost, on behalf of its client, your ego. If the very faculty you rely on to find the truth has been bribed to lie to you before the trial even starts, then every logical step you take simply moves you further into a manufactured reality. The question is no longer whether you are reasoning well, but what verdict your mind was paid to reach. This flowchart illustrates a corporate coup within human psychology. Ideally, your spiritual center, the heart, anchors your decisions. That when that order breaks down, your lower desires violently bypass the heart to seize direct control of your intellect. Classical philosophy refers to this lowest, most aggressive state of the self as nafs al-amara, the commanding ego. It operates on pure self-preservation, aggressively demanding logical justifications for its baseline appetites. Consider what happens when your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. Instantly, your reason is weaponized for comfort. Your brain invents a dozen highly logical excuses for why you desperately need more sleep, and why hitting the snooze button is actually the responsible, healthy choice. To protect its pride, this internal attorney uses a massive arsenal of tricks. It uses flat-out denial to reject painful realities. It projects faults onto others, accusing them of the very things you do. And it rationalizes immoral behavior, spinning a nice veneer of logic over bad choices. So what feels to you like a rigorous, deep intellectual debate is rarely an honest search for facts. Most of the time, that is simply your ego asserting dominance, while your mind does the heavy lifting of generating the excuses. This psychological malfunction scales up to the level of an entire civilization. When an entire society operates on this ego-driven mechanism, the collective intellect begins to mirror the individual's internal lawyer. The modern secular framework claims to be a neutral arbiter of facts, but it secretly crowns autonomous, unanchored human reason as the ultimate judge of reality, assuming the mind can validate itself without any outside reference. This illustrates the Munchausen trilemma. Forced to prove its own foundational rules, logic hits a dead end. Without an external anchor, it's trapped in a loop, like pulling yourself from a swamp by your own hair. The mind cannot measure the infinite with limited tools. When the autonomous human mind tries to play God, it cannibalizes itself. Without a standard outside of human thought, society is left stranded in a state of paralyzing skepticism, unable to prove anything is absolutely true. This logical collapse has a direct social consequence. Because reason cannot prove its own starting points, it stops seeking objective truth and instead serves the highest bidder. It becomes a tool to sanctify the desires of whoever holds power, making oppression sound perfectly rational. Under this framework, the deepest elements of human life lose their absolute anchors. Without a fixed reference point like revelation to ground them, they dissolve into mere social conveniences. Worship gets downgraded. Instead of submission to absolute truth, it becomes a therapeutic exercise. It turns into a private preference, practiced solely to feel good. The concept of deep spiritual sin is entirely erased. The crooked attorney smoothly rebrands transgression into a lifestyle choice or a legal technicality, since there is no higher judge to answer to. This societal framework leaves the individual completely unmoored. They are left to blindly trust an intellect that is secretly, quietly, being steered by their most baseline appetites. To break out of this loop, we have to force a total reversal of epistemological gravity. We have to ask, the core question is, does reason judge revelation, or does revelation judge reason? This dividing line represents Al-Furqan, the criterion. It's an objective, unyielding anchor outside the human self that actively separates absolute truth from falsehood. The commanding ego violently hates this criterion. It acts as an unbribable judge. It is the one mirror the ego cannot shatter with clever rationalizations, because it holds us accountable for our hidden intentions rather than our public excuses. Right now, the modern world demands the sacred justify itself before the court of human logic. But forcing the intellect to kneel before an external, orthodox rule doesn't destroy the mind. It cures its arrogant delusion by giving it a fixed point to measure against. By stepping down from the role of ultimate judge, the intellect is finally safe. It stops acting as a manipulative lawyer and functions instead as a sharp, analytical lamp. Your mind is still analyzing and reasoning, but it is now guided by a light it did not have to invent. We all have that crooked attorney whispering clever excuses in our minds every day. So, what is your next move? You can continue to let your ego's hired gun defend your illusions, or you can fire the attorney and step into the unyielding light of the criterion.